The stars had always been silent to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. Then, 80 years ago, they found the answer. They were not alone. The galaxy was full of life, full of civilizations, full of empires that had existed for millions of years before humans learned to make fire. But humanity did something unexpected. They did not announce themselves. They did not send greetings or ask for friendship. Instead, they watched. They listened. They learned. And they prepared. Captain Taewoo stood on the bridge of the stealth warship Phantom Soul. The ship was invisible to every known sensor in the galaxy. It moved through space like a ghost, leaving no trace, making no sound. For 12 years, Taewoo had commanded this vessel. For 12 years, he had watched alien civilizations go about their business, never knowing that human eyes were always watching. Today, those eyes saw something terrible. On the main screen, a small agricultural world burned. Ships from the Varix Dominion surrounded the planet like hungry wolves around a wounded animal. The Varix were tall creatures with gray skin and forearms. They had built their empire on one thing: slaves. They took people from weaker worlds and sold them across the galaxy. It was legal. It was normal. No one in the Galactic Concord saw anything wrong with it. Lieutenant Hana stood beside her captain. Her hands were tight fists at her sides. On the screen, she could see the transport ships landing on the planet's surface. She could see the Varix soldiers dragging families from their homes. Children screamed for their parents. Parents screamed for their children. The Varix did not care. How many? Taewoo asked quietly. Sensors show approximately 40,000 beings on the surface. Hana replied. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with anger. The Varix will take them all. Taewoo said nothing. He had seen this before. Many times. The galaxy was a cruel place, and the strong always fed on the weak. That was the way of things out here among the stars. Captain, Hana said, turning to face him. We have weapons. We have the power to stop this. We have orders. Taewoo replied. Orders. Hana almost spat the word. We hide while innocents suffer. We watch while children are taken from their mothers. What kind of orders are those? Taewoo understood her anger. He felt it too, deep in his chest, like a fire that never went out. But he also understood something else. Humanity was not ready. Not yet. The Galactic Concord contained hundreds of species and thousands of worlds. Their combined fleets numbered in the millions of ships. Earth had only a few thousand. Good ships, powerful ships, but not enough. If we reveal ourselves now, we die. Taewoo said simply. Earth burns. Our families burn. Everyone we love becomes exactly like those people down there. Slaves, property, nothing. Hana looked away. She knew he was right. She hated that he was right. The bridge was silent as they watched the Varix complete their harvest. The transport ships rose from the planet's surface, now filled with living cargo. The warships formed up around them, and the entire fleet jumped away to faster than light speed. In minutes, they were gone. The planet below was empty now. Homes stood abandoned. Food rotted in fields. Toys lay forgotten in the dirt. 40,000 lives, simply taken. Send the report to Admiral Seok, Taewoo ordered. Full sensor logs. Everything we recorded. Yes, Captain, the communications officer replied. Taewoo walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. His home. His people. They had worked so hard to stay hidden, to grow strong in secret. They had watched the galaxy for 80 years, learning its languages, studying its technology, mapping its weaknesses. And what had they learned? They had learned that the galaxy was a dark and terrible place. They had learned that might made right, that the strong ruled and the weak served. They had learned that concepts like freedom and dignity meant nothing to most species out here. They had also learned that humanity was different. Back on Earth's moon, in the hidden military base called Jindo, Admiral Seok received the report from the Phantom Soul. He was an old man now. With gray hair and tired eyes, he had spent his entire life preparing for a war that might never come, or might come tomorrow. He watched the footage of the Varix raid. He watched the children being torn from their families. He watched the casual cruelty of soldiers who saw other beings as nothing more than products to be sold. How long? He whispered to himself. How long must we watch? There was no answer. There never was. The next day, Admiral Siok met with Earth's political leaders. They sat in a secure room deep beneath the lunar surface, surrounded by screens showing data from 100 hidden observation posts across the galaxy. The Varix raid was successful, one politician said calmly. They captured approximately 42,000 slaves. Current market value is estimated at— I don't care about market value, Sok interrupted. I care about what we're becoming. The room fell silent. We've been hiding for 80 years, Siok continued. We've watched countless atrocities. We've done nothing. We tell ourselves it's for survival. We tell ourselves we're not ready. But I wonder, will we ever be ready? Or will we just keep watching until we forget what it means to be human? The politicians exchanged uncomfortable looks. They had heard this argument before. They always had the same answer. Admiral, the senior leader said carefully, we understand your concerns. But the mathematics are clear. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Our only path to survival is remaining hidden. Siok nodded slowly. He had expected this response. He had heard it 100 times before. And if they find us? He asked. What then? They won't find us. Our stealth technology is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Sok replied quietly. Nothing lasts forever. Far across the galaxy, on the bridge of a Varix patrol ship, a sensor officer frowned at his console. For just a moment, he had detected something strange. A small anomaly in the sensor data. A ghost in the machine. He ran a diagnostic check. Everything came back normal. Probably just cosmic radiation or a software glitch. He deleted the anomaly from the log and returned to his duties. He never thought about it again. He should have. That small ghost in his sensors was the Phantom Soul, passing within 1,000 kilometers of his ship. Watching, listening, learning, the humans were everywhere. And no one knew they existed. But secrets never last forever. And humanity's secret was about to end in blood and fire. The research vessel Baekdu was small and quiet. It carried no weapons and only 42 crew members. Its mission was simple: study the outer regions of the galaxy, collect data, and stay hidden. For 3 years, it had done exactly that. Dr. Yuna, the ship's lead scientist, had discovered 17 new species of space-living organisms. She had mapped 2 previously unknown star systems. She had done important work. None of that mattered now. The solar storm came without warning. One moment, the Baekdu's stealth systems were working perfectly. The next moment, they were dead. The ship was suddenly visible to every sensor within 100 light-years, and unfortunately, a Varix patrol fleet was only 50 light-years away. How long until we can restore stealth? Yuna asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Ensign J looked up from his pilot's console. He was young, only 24 years old, with a kind face and quick hands. Engineering says at least 6 hours. Maybe more. 6 hours. They did not have 6 minutes. The Varix ships appeared on sensors almost immediately. 12 warships, heavily armed, moving at maximum speed directly toward the Baekdu. There was no possibility of escape. There was no possibility of fighting back. The small research vessel was completely helpless. All hands, Yuna announced over the ship's communication system. Prepare for contact with unknown vessels. Remain calm. Do not resist. Our best chance of survival is cooperation. She did not believe her own words. She had studied the Varix. She knew what they did to captured species. But she had to give her crew some hope, even if it was false hope. The Varix ship surrounded the Baekdu within the hour. A docking tube connected the largest warship to the small human vessel. Then the soldiers came. Yuna had never seen a Varix in person before. They were terrifying, nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 muscular arms. Their faces had no expression, just cold black eyes that looked at the human crew the way a farmer might look at livestock. The Varix commander stepped forward. His uniform marked him as Warlord Drevnus, a high-ranking officer in their military. He walked slowly through the corridors of the Bakdu, examining everything with casual interest. "What species is this?" he asked his officers. "I don't recognize them." "Unknown, Warlord. They're not in any database. A previously undiscovered primitive species, perhaps." Drevnus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Excellent. Unknown species sell for premium prices. They're exotic. Collectors will pay well for them." The human crew was gathered in the main cargo hold. 42 frightened men and women, standing in neat rows while Varric soldiers pointed weapons at them. Yuna stood at the front, trying to be brave for her people. Drevnus walked up to her and looked down. Humans were small compared to Varric's. Yuna barely reached his chest. "You are the leader?" he asked. "I am Dr. Yuna. This is a scientific research vessel. We are peaceful explorers. We mean no harm to." Drevnus hit her across the face. She fell to the ground, blood flowing from her lip. "I did not ask for your life story," he said calmly. "I asked if you were the leader. A simple yes or no will do." "Yes," Yuna whispered from the floor. "Good. Now, you will tell me everything about your species. Where is your homeworld? How many of you are there? What technology do you possess?" Yuna said nothing. She had been trained for this possibility. All humans who served on ships were trained for capture scenarios. Never reveal Earth's location. Never reveal humanity's true capabilities. Die if necessary. But never betray your people. Drevnus waited for a moment, then shrugged. "Your silence is expected. All new slaves resist at first. They learn quickly." He turned to his soldiers. "Take the young male. The one with the kind face." Two Varrics grabbed Ensign J and dragged him forward. The young pilot struggled, but it was useless. The Varrics were far stronger. "Please," Yuna said, forcing herself back to her feet. "He's just a boy. He knows nothing. I'm the leader. Question me." "I intend to," Drevnus replied. "But first, a demonstration is necessary. Your crew must understand their new reality. Resistance has consequences." What happened next would haunt Yuna for the rest of her life. Drevnus questioned Jay about Earth's location. Jay refused to answer. The Varrics tortured him for hours, using methods that Yuna could not watch. Through it all, Jay never spoke. He never betrayed his people. In the end, Drevnus grew bored. "This one has no useful information," he announced. "And his will is too strong. He would cause problems among the other slaves. Better to make an example." He killed Jay with a single shot to the head. The young pilot's body fell to the floor in front of his crewmates. Several humans screamed. Others wept. Yuna just stood there, frozen, staring at the boy she had failed to protect. "Now," Drevnus said pleasantly, "who would like to answer my questions? Remember, I have 40 more of you. We can do this 40 more times if necessary." In the chaos of the capture, Yuna had managed to send a distress signal. It was fragmented, incomplete, but it contained enough information. The signal traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed, bouncing through hidden relay stations that the Varrics knew nothing about. 3 days later, it reached Earth. Admiral Seok read the signal with shaking hands. A human ship captured, crew taken prisoner. Location unknown. But the signal contained sensor data that could be analyzed. "We can find them," his intelligence officer reported. "Give us 48 hours. We'll have their exact location." Seok nodded. "Do it." He walked to his office and sat alone in the darkness for a long time. For 80 years, humanity had hidden from the galaxy. For 80 years, they had avoided contact, avoided conflict, avoided attention. Now, 42 of his people were in the hands of slavers. One was already dead. His communication device beeped. It was Captain Tae-woo, commanding the Phantom Soul. "Admiral, I've received the distress signal. I'm requesting permission to begin rescue operations immediately." "Permission denied," Seok replied, though the words felt like poison in his mouth. "Earth Command is still discussing the situation." There was a long pause. Then Tae-woo's voice came back, cold and hard. "With respect, Admiral, How long will they discuss? Until all our people are dead. Sok had no answer. He knew Taewoo was right. He knew the politicians would debate and delay until it was too late. They always did. Captain, he said quietly, I may not be able to give you official orders, but I can tell you this. The Phantom Soul is scheduled for maintenance in 3 days. It would be unfortunate if the ship wandered off before then. Another pause. Then Taewoo understood. I understand, Admiral. We're experiencing some navigation difficulties. It may take us some time to return to base. Take all the time you need, Captain. Sok ended the communication. He had just committed treason. He had just started a chain of events that could not be stopped, and he felt no regret at all. On the Varix slave station, Yuna sat in a small cell with the surviving members of her crew. Jay's body had been disposed of like garbage. No ceremony. No respect. Just waste material to be recycled. She looked at her frightened crew and made a silent promise. We will survive this. Somehow, we will survive. And someday, the galaxy will learn what happens when you hurt humanity. She did not know that help was already coming. 3 stealth warships, the most advanced vessels ever built by human hands, were already on their way, and they were bringing death with them. The footage spread through Earth's military like fire through dry grass. Someone had leaked the sensor recordings from the Baekdu's final transmission. Every soldier, every pilot, every officer saw Ensign Jay's execution. They saw the young pilot refuse to betray his people. They saw him die with courage and honor, and they saw Warlord Drevnus laugh while doing it. The response was immediate. In bases across Earth and the lunar colonies, military personnel demanded action. They had spent their entire lives training to protect humanity. They had the best weapons, they had the best ships, and they were forced to hide while their brothers and sisters were murdered. This cannot stand, Captain Taewoo said to his crew. We have spent 80 years watching. We have watched enough. The Phantom Soul was already moving. 2 other stealth warships had joined them, the Silent Busan and the Ghost Incheon. 3 ships carrying a total of 600 crew members. Against a Varix fleet that likely numbered in the dozens, it was not a fair fight. But the humans were counting on that. Commander Mira stood beside Taewoo on the bridge. She was his second in command, a tactical genius who could calculate battle strategies faster than most computers. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were sharp and focused. I've analyzed the Varix defensive patterns, she reported. Their slave processing station orbits a gas giant in the Sector 12. Standard patrol routes, standard security. They're not expecting any trouble. They never do, Taewoo replied. How many ships? 18 warships in the immediate area. Another 30 can arrive within 2 hours if they call for help. Lieutenant Hana looked up from her tactical console. Captain, we have 3 ships. How exactly do we fight 48? Taewoo smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. We don't fight 48. We fight 18, then we leave before the other 30 arrive, and if something goes wrong, then we improvise. Sergeant Hojin? A large man stepped forward from the back of the bridge. Sergeant Hojin commanded the Phantom Soul's elite boarding team, known as the Black Tide, 20 soldiers. The best trained in all of human military history. My team is ready, Captain. We'll get our people out, whatever it takes. Taewoo nodded. The plan is simple. The Ghost Incheon and Silent Busan will create a distraction on the far side of the station. While the Varix focus on them, we approach from the opposite direction. Sergeant Hojin's team boards the station, finds our people, and brings them home. We stay cloaked until absolutely necessary. And if we're discovered before the extraction is complete? Mira asked. Then we decloak and fight, and we show the Varix what happens when they touch our people. The journey to Sector 12 took 4 days. 4 days of tension and preparation. 4 days of checking weapons and running simulations. 4 days of thinking about Ensign J and the 41 people still alive on that station. When they arrived, the Varix station was exactly as intelligence had predicted. A massive structure orbiting a brown gas giant. Processing facilities, holding cells, and transport docks. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were held there, waiting to be sorted and sold. Sensor sweep complete, Hana reported. I count 22 warships in the area, 4 more than expected. Can we handle 22? Taewoo asked Mira. It will be difficult. But, yes. Then we proceed. The Ghost Incheon and Silent Busan moved into position. At exactly the planned moment, they decloaked on the far side of the station and opened fire. The Varric's response was immediate. Alarm signals filled every frequency. Ships scrambled to engage the unknown attackers. On the near side of the station, the Phantom Soul remained invisible. Sergeant Ho Jin and his team launched in a small shuttle. Completely undetected, they approached the station's cargo bay and cut through the hull with plasma torches. We're in, Ho Jin reported. Moving to holding area, the black tide moved through the station like shadows. Any Varric's guard who saw them died silently before they could raise an alarm. Ho Jin had trained his team for years. They were perfect. In the holding cells, Dr. Yuna heard sounds she didn't understand. Shouting in the distance. Then, silence. Then footsteps approaching. The cell door opened. Yuna expected to see Varric's soldiers, coming to take another victim for questioning. Instead, she saw humans. Soldiers in black armor, carrying weapons she had never seen before. Dr. Yuna? The leader asked. His voice was calm and professional. Yes, that's me. I'm Sergeant Ho Jin. We're here to take you home. Yuna felt tears streaming down her face. There are 41 of us. Ensign Jay was killed. We know. We're sorry. Now please, follow us. We need to move quickly. The human prisoners were gathered and escorted toward the extraction point. But as they passed through the station's corridors, Yuna saw the other cells, thousands of other prisoners, from species across the galaxy, watching them with desperate eyes. Wait, she said, grabbing Ho Jin's arm. What about them? Our mission is to rescue human prisoners, Ho Jin replied. We don't have authorization. They're slaves. Just like we were. Are we going to leave them here? Ho Jin looked at the faces behind the cell doors. Families, children, beings who had been taken from their homes exactly like the Baekdu crew. He activated his communication device. Captain, we have a situation. There are approximately 3,000 additional prisoners on this station. Dr. Yuna is requesting we extract them as well. There was a long pause. On the bridge of the Phantom Soul, Captain Taewoo looked at Commander Mira. The tactical implications were obvious. Rescuing 3,000 additional people would take time. Time they did not have. But Taewoo thought about why they had hidden for 80 years. It was never about fear. It was about choosing the right moment. Choosing when to reveal themselves. If humanity was going to step out of the shadows, shouldn't it be for something meaningful? Something that proved who they really were? Do it, he ordered. Free everyone. We'll cover you. The rescue operation expanded. Ho Jin's team opened every cell on the station. Thousands of frightened beings poured out, following the human soldiers toward the cargo bays where transports were waiting. The chaos was enormous. The noise was deafening, and then the alarms went off. A Varric security team had discovered the operation. They transmitted a distress call before dying. Within seconds, every ship in the area knew that unknown forces had invaded the station. Warlord Drevnus received the report on his flagship, the Victorious. He had returned to the station after delivering his latest cargo of slaves to market. Now he stared at the tactical display in confusion. Unknown attackers? What species? We don't know, Warlord. They appeared from nowhere. Our sensors never detected them. Drevnus felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Something was very wrong here. Pull all ships back to the station. Find these attackers and destroy them. The Varric's fleet reorganized, surrounding the station. The Ghost Incheon and Silent Busan were already engaged in heavy combat, drawing fire from multiple warships. They were holding, but barely. On the Phantom Soul, Taewoo watched the tactical display. The extraction was 90% complete, just a few more minutes. But the Varric's flagship was approaching, and it was massive. 10 times the size of his ship, with weapons that could crack planets. Captain, Hana said quietly. He's scanning for us. Drevnus knows we're here somewhere. How long until extraction is complete? 7 minutes. Taewoo made his decision. Drop cloak. All weapons. Target the flagship. The Phantom Soul appeared in space directly in front of the Victorious. 1 second there was empty space. The next, a human warship was there. Weapons charging, pointed directly at Drevnis's bridge. Taewoo opened a communication channel. His message was broadcast across every frequency, to every ship in the area. This is Captain Taewoo of the Earth vessel Phantom Soul. You have taken what belongs to us. We have come to collect with interest. On the Victorious, Warlord Drevnis stared at the strange ship on his screen. Earth? He had never heard of it. These creatures were small and weak-looking. Their ship was tiny compared to his flagship. He started to laugh. It was the last mistake he would ever make. Warlord Drevnis was still laughing when the first plasma lance hit his flagship. The beam of concentrated energy cut through his forward shields like they were made of paper. It tore through 3 decks of the Victorious before exiting out the other side. 200 Varix crew members died in that single shot. The laughter stopped. "Return fire!" Drevnis screamed. "Destroy that ship!" The Victorious opened up with everything it had. Missile batteries launched hundreds of warheads. Energy cannons blazed with killing light. The combined firepower would have destroyed a small moon. None of it hit. The Phantom Soul moved like nothing the Varix had ever seen. It twisted and turned through the storm of weapons fire with impossible grace. Its point defense systems created walls of intercepting fire, destroying missiles before they could get close. Its engines pushed it to speeds that should have been impossible for a ship its size, and it kept firing back. Plasma lances struck the Victorious again and again. Each hit caused massive damage. Each hit killed dozens of crew. Drevnis watched in horror as his mighty flagship was torn apart piece by a vessel 1/10 its size. "What are these creatures?" he whispered. No one had an answer. On the bridge of the Phantom Soul, Commander Mira called out targets with cold efficiency. Her voice never changed, never showed emotion. She identified weaknesses in the Varix formation and exploited them without mercy. Target the engine section of the cruiser at bearing 7-2. Fire. A Varix cruiser exploded. Target the weapons array on the destroyer at bearing 159. Fire. Another Varix ship went dark. Its weapons destroyed. Lieutenant Hana stood at the tactical console, her hands moving across the controls with practiced speed. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Every simulation, every exercise, every hour of study had led to this. And she was magnificent. 3 destroyers approaching from starboard, she reported. "They're trying to flank us." "Let them try," Taewoo replied. "Show them why that's a mistake." Hana targeted all 3 ships simultaneously. The Phantom Soul's weapon systems locked on, calculated firing solutions, and launched a coordinated strike. 3 plasma lances fired as one. 3 destroyers died as one. Outside, the space around the station had become a graveyard. Varix ships burned and tumbled, their crews dead or dying. The Ghost Incheon and Silent Busan had joined the main battle now, their own weapons adding to the destruction. Human missiles, guided by artificial intelligence systems far more advanced than anything in the Concorde, found their targets with perfect accuracy. The Varix had numbers, they had size, they had centuries of military tradition. None of it mattered. Humanity had spent 80 years watching the galaxy. They had studied every species, every weapon, every tactic. They had learned from the mistakes of others, and they had built something new, something terrible, something the galaxy had never seen before. A military designed specifically to fight everyone. On the Victorious, Drevnis watched his fleet die. 22 warships, among the finest in the Varix Dominion, being destroyed by 3 small human vessels. It was impossible. It was happening anyway. "Warlord," his tactical officer said, his voice shaking with fear. "We should retreat." "Retreat," Drevnis snarled. "I am Warlord Drevnis. I do not retreat from primitives." But even as he spoke, another section of his ship exploded. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the Victorious. Fires burned on multiple decks. The great flagship was dying. In desperation, Drevnis made a final decision. If he could not destroy the human warships, he would hurt them another way. Target the slave transports, he ordered. Kill all the escaped prisoners. Make these humans pay. The surviving Varix ships turned their weapons toward the transport vessels. Thousands of rescued prisoners were aboard those ships, fleeing toward safety. They had no weapons. They had no defenses. They would die in seconds. Captain, Hana shouted, the Varix are targeting the transports. Taewoo reacted without hesitation. All ships, protect those transports, nothing gets through. The 3 human warships repositioned, placing themselves between the Varix weapons and the fleeing prisoners. They became shields, taking hits meant for the defenseless transports. The Phantom Soul shuddered as enemy fire struck its hull. Damage report, Taewoo demanded. Hull breach on Deck 7, 3 casualties. Shields at 40%. For the first time in the battle, the humans were being hurt. Drevnus saw it on his sensors. He saw the human ships slowing, protecting the weak instead of pressing their attack. They care about the slaves, he realized. Fascinating and foolish. Concentrate all fire on the largest human ship. Destroy their leader. Every surviving Varix weapon focused on the Phantom Soul. The shields failed. The hull cracked. Crew members died at their stations, and Taewoo smiled. Mira, he said calmly, launch the special package. Commander Mira pressed a single button on her console. A small drone launched from the Phantom Soul. It was tiny, barely larger than a person. It carried no weapons. It carried no explosives. It carried something far more dangerous. The drone accelerated to incredible speed. It weaved through the Varix defensive fire like it knew every shot before it was fired. Because it did. The artificial intelligence guiding it had analyzed Varix firing patterns for decades. It knew exactly how they would react. It knew exactly where they would shoot, and it knew exactly how to avoid them. The drone slammed into the bridge of the Victorious at nearly light speed. The explosion was small, but the effect was devastating. The entire command section of the flagship simply ceased to exist. Warlord Drevnus, his officers, his tactical displays, all gone in an instant. One moment, he was commanding his fleet. The next, he was atoms scattered through space. Without their commander, the remaining Varix ships panicked. Some tried to flee. Some tried to surrender. Some just drifted, their crews too shocked to function. The human ships showed no mercy. They had come to send a message, and that message would be written in blood. Every Varix warship was destroyed. Every enemy crew member was killed. Not because the humans were cruel, but because they needed the galaxy to understand something important. Do not touch humanity. Ever. The battle lasted 47 minutes. At the end, the Varix had lost 22 warships and over 60,000 crew members. The humans had lost 12 people, 12 lives, each one precious, each one remembered. But 12 compared to 60,000, the galaxy would learn about those numbers. The galaxy would remember. On the slave station, Dr. Yuna stood at a viewport and watched the last Varix ship burn. Beside her, an alien woman held her child close. They were freed slaves, members of a species Yuna had never seen before. They had been captured from their homeworld 6 months ago. They had expected to die in chains. You saved us, the alien woman whispered. Why? You don't know us. We're nothing to you. Yuna looked at the woman, looked at the child, looked at the thousands of freed beings filling the station corridors. You're not nothing, she said. No one is nothing. That's what we believe. What are you? Lieutenant Hana approached, having come aboard the station to help coordinate the evacuation. She heard the question and answered it simply. We're humans. And we don't believe anyone should be a slave. The alien woman started to cry. She held her child tighter and whispered something in her own language. A prayer, perhaps. Or a thank you to whatever gods she believed in. Across the galaxy, panicked transmissions flew through space. Survivors of the battle, fleeing in escape pods, telling anyone who would listen about the nightmare they had witnessed. A new species, appearing from nowhere. Weapons that could not be stopped. Ships that could not be hit. The humans are coming, the messages said. And they are angry. The Galactic Concord received these messages with confusion and fear. They demanded answers. They demanded explanations. They would get them, but they would not like what they heard. The galaxy was in chaos. Within hours of the battle, every species in the Galactic Concord knew about the humans. The transmissions from surviving Variks spread like a disease, carrying fear and confusion to every corner of known space. Emergency meetings were called. Fleets were mobilized. Diplomats screamed at each other across communication channels. Who were these humans? Where did they come from? How had they remained hidden for so long? And most importantly, what did they want? On Earth, the answer to that question was still being debated. The secret was out. There was no going back to hiding. Now humanity had to decide what kind of presence they wanted to have in the galaxy. Would they be conquerors? Traitors? Isolationists? The possibilities were endless and terrifying. Admiral Siok stood before the leaders of Earth's united government. Behind him, a massive screen showed the current disposition of human military forces. 300 warships, positioned at strategic points throughout human-controlled space, ready for whatever came next. The Variks Dominion is demanding our destruction, Siok reported. They have called for a combined fleet from all slave-holding empires. They want revenge for the battle at the station. How many ships? A government leader asked. Initial estimates suggest they could assemble approximately 5,000 warships within 3 months. Fear rippled through the room. 5,000 ships against 300. Even with human technological advantages, those numbers were terrifying. However, Siok continued, not everyone agrees with the Variks. Several species have reached out through unofficial channels. They are curious about us. Some are even grateful for what we did. The slaves we freed came from many different worlds. Their stories are spreading. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Siok turned to face the screen. On it, a communication request was flashing. It came from the Galactic Concord headquarters, the central governing body of known space. I am suggesting that we answer their call. We tell them who we are. We tell them what we believe. And we let the galaxy decide how to respond. The vote was close, but in the end, the government agreed. It was time for humanity to speak. The Galactic Concord Chamber was the largest artificial structure in the known universe. Representatives from over 300 species filled the vast hall. They had come from every corner of the galaxy, summoned by the most unusual invitation in Concord history. The humans had asked to address the assembly. Admiral Siok appeared on the central platform via holographic projection. He was alone, a single human facing the judgment of an entire galaxy. But he stood straight and tall, showing no fear. Representatives of the Galactic Concord, he began. His voice transmitted to every corner of the chamber. I am Admiral Sok of the United Earth Defense Force. I speak today on behalf of humanity. Whispers filled the chamber. So these were humans. So small. So fragile-looking. How had they caused so much damage? 80 years ago, humanity discovered that we were not alone in the universe. We detected your signals, mapped your territories, observed your civilizations. We had a choice to make: reveal ourselves and join your community, or remain hidden and learn what kind of galaxy this truly was. Siok paused, letting his words sink in. We chose to watch, and what we saw disturbed us. Images appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Slave markets, prisoner transports, worlds stripped of their populations. The everyday horrors of galactic civilization, displayed for all to see. We saw slavery treated as normal commerce. We saw the strong prey upon the weak without consequence. We saw species with the power to end suffering choose instead to profit from it. We saw a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to be civilized. The representatives stirred uncomfortably. These were not pleasant truths, but they were truths nonetheless. We could have joined you, Sok continued. We had the technology. We had the power. But we asked ourselves, what kind of neighbors did we want? And the answer was clear. Not these, not yet, perhaps not ever. So we waited. We grew stronger. We watched your wars, your cruelties, your failures. We learned everything about you. And when your people took our people, When your warlord Drevnus murdered our citizens and laughed while doing it, we decided that the watching was over. Admiral Soak's voice hardened. You have asked why we attacked the Varix fleet. The answer is simple. They took what was ours. They killed what was ours. And we responded. This is what humanity does. We protect our own. We do not negotiate with slavers. We do not bargain with murderers. We act. But, he said, his voice softening slightly, we are not your enemies. We did not come here to conquer your worlds or steal your resources. We have no interest in building an empire. What we want is far simpler. The chamber was completely silent now. Every eye focused on the human admiral. We want slavery to end. We want the strong to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. We want children to grow up free, regardless of what species they are or where they were born. We want a galaxy that values life more than profit. These are not demands. We know we cannot force 300 species to change their ways. But we can make our position clear. Where there is slavery, we will oppose it. Where there is genocide, we will intervene. Where the helpless are being harmed, we will answer their call. You ignored us for 80 years. You dismissed us as primitives, if you thought of us at all. And when you took our people, you learned the price of that ignorance. We are not your enemies unless you make us so. Soak raised his hand, and behind him appeared an image of Earth. Blue oceans, green continents, a beautiful world full of life. This is our home. This is what we will protect. Threaten it, and you will discover that the battle at the Varix station was just a small sample of what we can do. But leave us in peace, treat others with dignity, and you will find no better friends in all the galaxy. The choice is yours. We have made ours. The hologram faded. Admiral Soak was gone. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber erupted into chaos. Some representatives demanded immediate war. Others called for alliance negotiations. Others simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. But amid all the shouting, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, the threatened combined fleet never materialized. The slave-holding empires talked loudly about revenge, but none of them wanted to be the first to attack humanity directly. They had seen what happened to the Varix. They had seen how easily human weapons destroyed their strongest warships. Meanwhile, other species quietly reached out. Small delegations arrived at human space, seeking trade agreements and cultural exchange. Former slaves told their stories across the galaxy, speaking of the strange creatures who had freed them and asked for nothing in return. Dr. Yuna became one of humanity's first ambassadors. She traveled to dozens of worlds, sharing her experiences, answering questions, building bridges between species. Everywhere she went, she carried the same message. Humanity did not want war, but humanity would not tolerate slavery. There was always a choice. Captain Taewoo received a promotion and command of Earth's newest warship, but he rarely smiled anymore. At night, he sometimes dreamed of Ensign J, the young pilot who had died, rather than betray his people. The price of revealing humanity to the galaxy had been paid in blood. Taewoo would never forget that. Lieutenant Hana transferred to a new command, leading one of the patrol squadrons that now openly protected human space. She had become famous throughout the fleet, the tactical officer who had helped destroy an entire Varix armada. But fame meant nothing to her. She just wanted to keep her people safe. Commander Mira stayed with the Phantom Soul, training new officers in the art of asymmetric warfare. Her students learned to fight outnumbered, outgunned, and win anyway. They learned to protect the weak and destroy the cruel. They learned what it meant to be human. Sergeant Hojin and his Black Tide team became legends. Songs were written about them on dozens of freed slave worlds. Children played games pretending to be the human soldiers who had appeared from nowhere and broken their chains. Hojin himself never sought fame. He just kept training, kept preparing for the next mission. There would always be another mission, and across the galaxy, the freed slaves told their stories. They spoke of the small, strange creatures who had appeared like ghosts and fought like demons. They spoke of the words Lieutenant Hana had said, "We don't believe anyone should be a slave." It became a phrase of hope, a whisper in the darkness, a promise that somewhere out there, someone cared. On the bridge of the Phantom Soul, Captain Tae-woo stood watching the stars. The ship was on patrol near the border of human space, watching for trouble, ready to respond. After 80 years of hiding, humanity was finally visible, finally part of the galaxy. For better or worse, Lieutenant Hana joined him at the viewport, her duty shift completed. "Do you think they'll ever understand us?" she asked quietly. Tae-woo considered the question. Out there among the stars, hundreds of species were debating what humanity represented. Threat or opportunity, enemy or friend, monster or savior. "No," he said finally. "They'll never understand us. We're too different. We care about things they consider worthless. We fight for reasons they can't comprehend. Then what hope is there?" Tae-woo looked at her. And for the first time in weeks, he almost smiled. "They don't need to understand us. They just need to respect us. And maybe that's enough for now." The stars shone cold and distant, as they always had. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the darkness, and the galaxy was slowly, painfully, learning that ignoring the small blue world called Earth had been the greatest mistake in its history. The price of ignorance had been paid in blood across the stars, but it was only the beginning.